In ancient Greece, the sacred bond of hospitality had a time limit. 3 days. After that, the guest became a burden, and the host became a hostage. The Greeks knew something the modern world has forgotten. Welcome is not infinite. It has a shape, and you have always known this. Welcome to power and myth. Before we name what you carry, let me show you something the ancients encoded into ritual that the modern world has forgotten was wisdom. In Homer's Odyssey, when Telemachus arrives at the palace of Menelaus, he is welcomed as a guest. He is fed, he is bathed, he is given gifts, he is asked who he is only after his needs have been met. This is Xenia, the sacred Greek law of hospitality. It was not politeness, it was a binding contract between the gods and human beings. To violate Xenia was to invite divine punishment. The Trojan War itself begins with a violation of Xenia. Paris was a guest in Menelaus's house when he took Helen. The decade of slaughter that followed was the cosmic consequence of breaking the host-guest bond. But Xenia had a structure that modern hospitality has lost. It had a window. In Homer's epics, the convention was roughly 3 days. After that, the relationship had to change. The guest either departed or was drawn into the household as something more than a guest. The Greeks understood something precise. Welcome is a finite resource. Stay too long, and the gift becomes a debt. The host who once delighted in the stranger begins to resent them. The guest who once felt cherished begins to feel exposed. The sacred bond turns toxic. The wise traveller knew the window. They left before it closed. Now travel east. The Buddha himself was a wandering ascetic for 45 years after his enlightenment. He emerged from a much older Indian tradition of the parivrajaka, the wanderers, ascetics who renounced settled life entirely. They moved from village to village, accepting alms, never lingering. The principle was simple. Attachment to place was understood to be its own kind of bondage. The wanderer who stayed too long ceased to be a wanderer. The community would feed them, shelter them, honour them. And then, when the time came, they would walk on. The walking was the practice, 2 traditions, different centuries, different cosmologies, different languages, the same encoded knowledge. The wanderer must leave. Not because they are restless, not because they are running from something, because the ancient figure knew that welcome has a window. The wise wanderer leaves before the window closes around them. What is the actual mechanism? Why did every wisdom tradition that honoured the wanderer also encode the discipline of departure? Because the elders had observed something the modern village no longer wants to see. The community's tolerance for the one who moves through is high at first, then deep, then suddenly thin. There is a turning point. The exact moment is unpredictable. But the turn is real. Before the turn, the wanderer is a gift. The village delights in their stories, their perspective, their refusal to be domesticated. After the turn, the same qualities become threats. The stories sound like criticism. The perspective sounds like judgment. The refusal to be domesticated sounds like contempt. The wanderer has not changed. The village's relationship to them has changed. And once the turn has happened, no act of contrition will reverse it. The wisdom encoded in Xenia, in the parivrajaka's walking, is this. Leave before the turn. The wanderer who stays past the turn becomes an enemy of the very community that recently loved them. The wanderer who leaves before the turn is remembered as a blessing. You recognize this. You have always recognized this. Because what the ancients ritualized you carry as instinct. You have walked into rooms and felt in the first 10 minutes exactly how long the welcome would last. You have been at gatherings where the warmth was unmistakable, and you have already known the date of its expiry. You have been in jobs, in friendships, in cities, in marriages, where everyone around you saw stability. You alone could feel the floor beginning to shift months before anyone else noticed. And you have left, sometimes early, sometimes too early, sometimes after agonizing about whether you were imagining the shift. But you have always left before the village pushed you out, and you have wondered your whole life whether this was wisdom or whether it was wound. What the ancients called the discipline of the wanderer has a name in modern psychology. Jung would recognize it as introverted intuition at work. It is the unconscious reading of signals a community emits when its tolerance window begins to close. The nigh-dominant mind processes vast quantities of microsignal beneath conscious awareness. The slight shift in someone's tone, the conversation that suddenly no longer includes you, the compliments that have started to feel like comparisons, the questions that have started to feel like inventories. None of these are conscious to the people who emit them. They are barely conscious to you. But your unconscious is keeping a ledger, and when the ledger crosses a threshold, not as a thought, a certainty. The same certainty Telemachus felt when he knew it was time to leave Menelaus's hall, even though Menelaus pressed him to stay longer. This is the wandering witness reading the threshold, and it is not a flaw, it is the archetype's preservation mechanism. The village destroys the wanderer who cannot read the threshold. The wanderer who reads it accurately is preserved. You are not paranoid. You are not commitment-averse. You are doing what Telemachus did. You are doing what the parivrajaka did. You are honoring the architecture of welcome. But there is a shadow. There is always a shadow. The first shadow is that the threshold detector can become hyperactive. Once the wandering witness has been pushed out of one too many places too late, the system starts firing earlier and earlier. A normal social cooling becomes evidence of the turn. A friend's bad day becomes the closing of the window. The wanderer leaves before the welcome was actually withdrawn. They never discover whether this place might have been one of the rare ones that could hold them. The discipline of departure becomes the inability to stay anywhere long enough to be witnessed back. The second shadow is more subtle. The wandering witness internalizes the village's eventual rejection as a recurring fact of their life. Eventually, they can begin to believe the rejection was about them. They can begin to believe they are, in fact, too much, too perceptive, too intense, too unable to settle. They can begin to apologize for the very capacity that has preserved them. This is the residue the wanderer has been quietly carrying for decades. The third shadow is the exhaustion. To read the threshold accurately, your nervous system must remain partially open at all times. You cannot fully relax into any community because to relax fully would be to lose the early warning system. You are always slightly on watch. Even in the rare places where the welcome is genuine and unending, a part of you is checking. This is the cost of the gift. And the modern world, which does not understand the gift, is constantly diagnosing the cost as anxiety. If this is your archetype, the work is not to disable the threshold detector. That instinct has kept your lineage alive for 3,000 years. The work is twofold. The first is to learn to distinguish the signal of the closing window from the static of your own discomfort. They feel similar from the inside. With time, they stop feeling similar. The closing window has a quality of cold clarity. The static of personal discomfort has a quality of heat and noise. When you learn the difference, you stop leaving the rare places too early. You give the people who can actually witness you back the chance to do so. The second is to grieve. There has been a cost. Every place you have left has taken something with it. Every village whose welcome closed before you wanted it to has left a small mark. Most wandering witnesses have never properly mourned the places they had to leave. The grief is part of the inheritance. So is the dust of all the roads behind you. You have honoured the discipline. You have done what the ancients ritualized. And now, at this point in your life, you are allowed to feel the weight of all the departures. That weight is not evidence of anything broken in you. The weight is the price. The discipline is the gift. If this video names something you have lived for years without language for it, please tell me in the comments which line landed hardest. We are tracing this lineage together. Subscribe to Power and Myth if you want to keep naming what the modern world forgot. You are part of something here. Until next time, find your power, know your myth,